Yeah. You already know. Yeah. I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. They thought that I would fail, but my future's still looking well. You can still look and see no weapon form will prevail. I'ma still see heaven even though I went through hell. Elementary show and tell, look at what God did. Was a struggle, now I'm taking off like a rocket. Ain't gonna stop it, I know I'm blessed. And they think I'm by myself, but you know the rest. You know the rest, you don't know the stress. Don't know the stress that I've been through. Everything I've been through, cut like a Ginsu. Heartbreak, disappointment, backstabbing friends too. No money, rent's due, sleeping out the car. Yeah. Embarrassed as a man, still reaching for the stars. I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. They thought that I would fail, but my future's still looking well. You can still look and see no weapon form will prevail. I'ma still see heaven even though I went through hell. I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. The sky was the limit, but I'm reaching for the stars. I don't smoke, don't drink, you won't catch me by the bar, baby. Why you had to go and break my heart, baby? Wounds hurt, peeling back a scar, baby. Maybe I'll understand later. I'll understand greater days are coming ahead. But I know that I gotta press through to the end. And I know he's the only one that you can depend on. You can depend on, you can depend on. I'ma make a touchdown, I'm in the end zone, I'm in the win zone. Losing's not an option, thought that I would quit, but he pulled me through the process. I never thought I would've made it, I thought my future faded. He pulled me out the worst just to show me who the greatest. I know the pain hurts, lost, but I gain first. Knowledge that I'm breaking free, watch out of chambers. Yeah, I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. Still looking well. They thought that I would fail, but my future's still looking well. You can still look and see no weapon form will prevail. I'ma still see heaven even though I went through hell. I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. Still looking well, still looking well. Still looking well, 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 still looking well. You can still look and tell, no weapon will prevail. Still looking well, even through the pain, rain, hurt, sorrow. Took a look at tomorrow and I see you still looking well. I will never quit, I will never quit, no. Enter to the end, enter to the end though. Everything trying to stop, everything trying to block. I gotta knock down the walls like I'm digging for water. It's still looking well. I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. Still looking well. They thought that I would fail, but my future's still looking well. You can still look and see no weapon form will prevail. I'ma still see heaven even though I went through hell. I might have took a L, but my future's still looking well. Still looking well, looking well. Still looking well.
Yo, what is happening? This is John Farmer. Welcome to another episode of Mint Street Mondays. I'll be honest with you, I'm recording this one the night before Monday, obviously. So we'll premiere this show on Monday. So I'm still kind of coming off the high of what we just saw happen at the end of that game. And boy, was that magical. You know, I know that some people would beg to differ from this thought, but I think sometimes if you break down what most of us are as fans, right? We like simple things. And I think that there's nothing more simple to me than just having competitive football, right? It just changes the whole vibe. Man, coming out of this game, it just feels different. Like, look, I think one of the toughest things to deal with is hopelessness, right? There's a verse in the Bible that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. In the beginning of this game, really the whole first half, that's what it felt like. It felt like absolute hopelessness. Like, man, we're going to have to start over at the QB position. Man, we might have to end up firing the head coach. Man, what are we going to do about this, that, or the third? Defense, this. And it's just like, man, this stuff, it's like, and when you think about it, you look at these guys and you just think, and I don't know about you guys, but at least that's how I see it. I just think so much more of these guys. I've just seen so much more that is proof that this team can pull it together. Am I saying that this team is going to be immediately competing for any kind of Super Bowl championship, playoff, multiple playoff, appearances, things like that? No. I do think that there's a lot of building that needs to be done. But I do see a core nucleus of guys that can be competitive, right? And boy, I'm glad that it turned around. I am so glad it turned around. Because in the beginning of this game, man, it was scary. It honestly was. Because as a fan, these things run through your head. And I'm telling you, man, if some of this stuff doesn't work out, specifically for the first person that we're going to talk about, if it doesn't work out, man, this gets really ugly really fast, right? And I'm not saying that Bryce Young changed the full minds of everybody in Panther Nation immediately. But I do believe that there was a sense of urgency from him recognizing the gravity of the moment. Again, what is the gravity of that moment? It has to be me, right? There was a moment on the sideline again, another situation. Who knows what was said in this situation? But Bryce Young may be correcting, maybe jawing, who knows? Austin Corbett, right? It's got to be you. I said that before the season started. It's unfortunate that you've had the things that have happened to you since you've been here, and you have been responsible for a lot of those things. I don't want to get it misconstrued. You cannot turn the ball over early and expect to win ball games. It should not have to come to this type of effort to get things going, right? And I know that many people that would watch me today would be like, man, you really going to give him a pass? Nope, not giving him a pass for those 2 turnovers. But I also know people don't like context, right? Now, I'm going to give it to you anyway, because I know there's a section of people out there that enjoy listening to the context. But by and large, most people are going to walk away and say, no context needs to be given for someone who turned the ball over 2 times at the beginning of the game again, right? Makes sense. But what I love that he done, and someone said this, I quoted this or not quoted it, but I did quote it. It was my boy Arnez on X said, man, he would love to see a situation where the Carolina Panthers didn't have to rely on the heroics of your quarterback or 1 or 2 players in order to feel like you can win a game, right? Defense can get some stops, maybe the running game works a little bit, something that will give you a little bit of a spark, right? So that you don't have to necessarily rely. It's a more balanced approach. And it happened today. It happened late. And there was a whole lot of things that had to go into it, right? But it did happen, nonetheless. The Carolina Panthers, 27-3 down. 13 points in the fourth quarter, 7 in the third quarter. 6 and 6 points. 2 missed 2-point conversions. Huge letdowns, right? And again, those moments personally, when we go back and look at those play calls, when they go back and look at tape, they're going to walk away from that probably upset, thinking that, man, we really, really, really should have given opportunity to McMillan on some 50-50 situations, more than a couple of times. Sometimes when you have something that is this virtually unstoppable in certain areas, you got 50% chance of a catch, 50% chance of a PI. But I'm going to give you that opportunity. And I felt like that should have happened early and often. Sometimes it did, a lot of times it didn't, right? But the running game, non-existent. What I have started to recognize is that the Carolina Panthers, as far as identity is concerned, I know they want to be bullish with the run. Something's off. Chuba Hubbard, 10 carries, 38 yards, 3.8 yards per carry. Rico, 6 carries for 9 yards. Not going to get it done. But somehow we ended up with 22 points in this game and a drive that if we had scored, win it. Oddly enough, the person in control of that drive had an opportunity to win that game on a game-winning drive, but also put us in the opportunity in the unfortunate circumstance to where we had to be down that late in the game to begin with. But for me, today, I'm not going to go all in on Bryce. You know why? The way that some people would like. Because the people that protect him didn't go all in on him. Let's hear what they had to say. This is Robert Hunt.
I would never think of nothing like that. Like you just said, I don't think that was the case when nobody in the room, nobody thought that. It was just they hit us with some really good blitzes, and, they caught everybody up. That wasn't on him that, that he got hit in the ball. That's not his fault. We just had to adjust, and when we adjusted, we all saw what he did. He probably threw for, 330 yards, something like that. So we all saw what he did, man. And we all saw what he can do. That was never the question. We just got those guys did a really good job. We got to get those guys credit. They did a really good job in the first 2 possessions, and we adjusted to it and we got rolling.
They adjusted to it, and that's good. They made some really, really smart, good adjustments. And when the protection showed up, you could hear the announcers. The announcers were, waxing poetic. Man, when this kid's protected, man, he can do some masterful stuff. The problem is that when he's not protected, you got to protect the football. You can't make an errant throw. We saw Kyler Murray do the same thing. Don't try to force something, right? Take a sack. I'd rather second in America than the ball going to the opposing, defense. The opposing offense, right? Yeah, take a sack. Ball protection. But when you're 5'10", 195 pounds, and you got 330-pound guys coming at you, and then Calais Campbell, who me as a 6'5" guy would be terrified to see, if I'm just being honest, in pads. It's easier said than done. But still, when you're the number 1 overall pick and they're paying you to make these kind of decisions with the ball, got to smarten up. And you would hope that that's something that will happen. But I saw a few plays down the stretch, man, a few throws down the stretch that are just like, there was one where he got smoked. One of those similar plays from last week where you miss Hunter Renfrow because you don't want to get smoked. And this one, he stepped into it and he got smoked. But boy, was it a beautiful ball. And that's the kind of stuff I think you can see. And I think you can see it consistently. Finishing the game with 35 of 55, 328 yards. I think this is the highest passing game average of his career, right? 3 touchdowns to a pick and a 90 passer rating. Coming back from, 2 costly turnovers. You don't want to see that happen early, but, man, we cannot walk away from this game without thinking, man, you don't even have a chance if he doesn't start doing the stuff that he's doing, right? You don't have a chance if you don't have someone like McMillan doing what he was doing, which, not for nothing, Teteroa McMillan is a superstar. This kid is going to be a superstar. All he needs is more opportunity, and he ain't going to do nothing to get better. 100-yard receiving. And, there was the yak. Man, that one catch and then turn around upfield. Even another one where he caught like a curl and like turned one way and then went back the other. It was like the situational and the spatial awareness is off the charts. The separation is there. All the things that many people said that they were afraid of, one in particular, seem to be non-existent. Maybe if you turn on the tape, you may see some of that. But I could say that, honestly, maybe some was left on the table. Maybe there was a little bit left on the table. And I think that at the heart of the Adam Thielen trade, they knew that. They knew that you're going to have the kind of offense where you go to him like early and often. this could be a big play machine. Kind of already is, right? On 6 targets, 100 yards, right? Jatavian had 7 targets, 54. Fro, 2 touchdowns, 7 targets, 48. Which, not for nothing, I really wish that I would see Hunter Renfrow in more of the roles that he played towards the end of the game. Slot, quick game opportunities, little, outs or in breaking routes and stuff like that. Instead of these, you're putting him in situations that someone else who will remain nameless at the moment should probably be in more than him. So I don't know. But I just feel like Hunter Renfrow has the ability, like when he came into this offense, I kind of thought that he would be our version of like a Edelman or, just a slot machine, right? And I still think that this will probably still happen. But I don't know. I feel like he would fare better in those type of roles, right? Because I do think that there's a limitation. Like, Hunter Renfrow's not going to be like the contested catch machine. And I feel like he was put in a lot of those kind of positions, both in last game and this game, right? But without having the tape in front of me, and I'm not a tape expert, I can't say that for sure. But it just feels like sometimes when you watch the game, I heard many people say this. Everything just seems so difficult. Like, it just seems like the Panthers just make everything hard on themselves, right? And you wonder situationally if that plays a role into why things end up the way that they do, right? Maybe that's the reason why protection breaks down sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels like situationally we just struggle to really understand where we are on the field at times. We'll get to it in a second. There's a play that many people are talking about. Well, I wouldn't say a play, but like a series that many people are talking about. And we'll get to that in a moment. But it just feels like sometimes the guys just don't feel confident in what they're supposed to be doing, right? Now, whether you want to leave that up to the fact that some of these guys are just still trying to, grasp NFL playbooks. Maybe Dave Canales and Brad Izzik's playbook is a little bit, more complicated than led on to believe. I don't personally believe that. I think it's more just your sense of urgency and the type of player that you are. And I think T-Mac is proof of that. Like, T-Mac always seems to be. And it was like that from the moment that really he stepped into our facility. It seems like everything he does is high level. My training, you know what I'm saying? Showing the videos that he would, the content he would put out in the offseason. From the training to, the situational awareness to even in the preseason, he had a couple of plays go to him, a couple of really, good plays. And then there's that one play in the end zone. And you see now on some of those curls and, some of those different routes that he runs where he has to kind of turn around and turn back really quick. Like, he learned from that, turning back really quick, boom, catch, up the field. Bryce hit him in stride and, yak. And maybe if he had a little bit more speed, he takes it to the house. But I'm not arguing that because, hey, we haven't seen that. Nobody in a processed blue jersey has done that in quite some time. So you're not going to get any point argument from me on that particular play, right? But even in that moment in the end zone, turns around, my bad, laughing. Oh, yeah, we good, And it's like, you just love to see a guy like that. That, to me, speaks to your joy for what you do. And you're locked in, you're locked in what you're doing, and you love it. There's nothing about it that, you feel like you're in the zone when you have these opportunities, which are few and far between. You only get 17 of these opportunities a year. You know what I'm saying? When you're playing. Injury could rob you of any of them. So every single moment is like a learning experience. I get to learn. One of the reasons I like doing Mint Street Mondays, part of it is named after somebody that I used to follow. You guys might have heard of him before. E.T. the hip hop preacher, right? Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas would say, "What up, what up, what up? Thank God it's Monday," right? because most people have the Monday blues when they go to work. Not Eric. Eric excited. Man, thank God it's Monday. We get another opportunity to learn, to grow, to eventually lead to opportunities to be great. And that's the kind of joy that I see on that kid's face every single time he touches the ball. Every opportunity, every rep, you see him turn around, happy, thumbs up. Oh, I got it. Learning. Cool. Getting coached on the sideline. Okay. Got you, coach. Cool. I'm not saying that you have to be jovial like that, but boy, is it refreshing to watch people have that kind of joy for what they do. It's refreshing. You got the hiccups now. So, another point. I mentioned something earlier. Is it time for us to be concerned about Canales? Is Dave Canales in trouble? Is he on the hot seat already? I think if this game ends differently than it did, then maybe. I'm going to venture to say the seat might be tanned, but it's not hot. It's not even warm. Might be a tan seat, but it's not hot and it's not warm. And the reason is because I do believe that the guys are starting to respond to when you feel confident about your game plan. Here's what I also believe. I believe that the identity that you think you have is not where you are. I think there's a belief of where you think you are as a team, and then there's a reality. And we'll get into that in just a second. First, I want to listen to some of the press conference. This is Canales talking about, some of the, issues that we face today. One in particular, obviously the turnovers. But I do have something to say about that as well.
Why do you think it is that you can't play that type of football earlier on in the game? What's preventing that?
It's the turnovers. I think it's just, when you give the other, and I got to give them credit. I got to give the Cardinals credit for coming out and playing hard, really forcing the issue on some of those, and they had a good pressure plan. We were on our assignments, but we didn't execute the assignments. And, Bryce is in those situations, and sometimes it ain't the worst thing if you're in that situation to take a sack. I also know he makes some magical plays. I also know that he does find ways to find guys down the field, and that's part of his game. But, it's all of us. It's the mistakes that we have to continue to clean up.
I completely agree with that. I'll be honest with you. Maybe this is just me. And I'm sure that many of you will probably disagree with this and be like, oh, here you go, Captain Bryce. But I know Bryce makes some mistakes that are egregious. Things that are very difficult to overcome at times, right? But does it feel like it feels like to me that when those mistakes happen, that he just seems to be more open and more direct about pointing those things out versus, hey, the running game really wasn't there today. Or make mention of another player who had some, and there'll be some questions asked here and there about other things, but it just feels like when it comes to him in particular, there's a little bit more direct, no, it wasn't good. Can't turn over the ball, all that kind of stuff. Right, you can't. You can't turn over the ball, right? But I think it's also okay to acknowledge, hey, he made some big turnovers early, but man, what a rally. Wouldn't it be cool to hear that? Maybe you're not going to get that. Maybe he don't deserve it. I'm sure many of you out there would be like, well, do he really deserve that, John? Maybe not. But for me, I think it'd be cool to just, because I'll give you an example of something I saw. The last game, and as I'm recording this right now, the Minnesota Vikings are playing the Atlanta Falcons. Go Vikings, right? When J.J. McCarthy went on those late game heroics last week and won that game Monday night, heroic, thrilling game, right? When they got into the locker room, Kevin O'Connell was hyped up. And he made sure that this team knew that right there. That's what it took. That's what it takes, right? Man, I can think of a few times last year, and I said this on the show, whether or not you guys remember it or not on this particular show because this show is new, but I said this on recorded, shows, if you will, recorded podcast. Man, that New York game, what other game was it? It was the New York, the Saints was another game. Big time drives in those games, especially that Saints game. Big time drive at the end, right? And aside from maybe like a pat on the back or whatever like that, you wouldn't even think that Bryce did anything in that game. There is a disconnect there. I don't know what that disconnect is, but you just don't see the same kind of, and I don't know that it necessarily has to be, this high level, great, working relationship or whatever. I think it has to be the, respect. And I do believe that that's there. 100% I believe that that's there. But I just think that after some of these games, I mean, that Atlanta game going into last season, or the end of last season, and I know you're playing with house money, so you just kind of trying anything, and you just like, man, let's just let our hair hang and just, go out and you just rip it, man. I just feel like coming off of that game, you just want to. It wasn't really into the off season where you heard more of the, this was, he really showed up and showed like, this is what's up. And maybe it's because we hadn't won anything yet, and you don't deserve that yet. Maybe that's the reason, right? But I just don't think it would be a bad idea to kind of frame this in a way of like, look, this kid made some terrible turnovers at the beginning of this game. But boy, we would not have been in this game if he didn't go nuts in the end. And it was a total team effort because when we were down 27-3, the defense held the line. They didn't let any more points be scored so that we could, make a valiant effort to try to come back. Just me.
Yeah. Honestly, I got to look at the film to be able to tell you more specifically. But the bottom line is there's an element of time. And when teams are going to pressure you, you have an element of time. It's not going to be the cleanest pocket and all that, but you have an element of time. And we just have to make sure that we function as a group, in those situations.
Now, when we talk about blitz pickup, one, Austin Corbett got, blown out of the way, right? That was one. Two, and he's, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can correct me on this, I believe Austin Corbett is between him and Damian Lewis. Those are the ones setting the protection, right? So we'll see what, how that is explained. And then the other one was, if I'm not mistaken, Rico kind of missed an assignment. But again, this is not me trying to make an excuse. It's providing context for sure. But I'm not making an excuse for the turnovers at all because it can't happen.
I don't. I think the emphasis was there. That's something that we'll continue to just, hammer, and we'll continue to just attack that as a group and look at those things and keep pushing for improvement. I mean, I know what this group is. I know that we'll finish. I know that we had a bunch of tough guys, high character guys that'll continue to play football. That'll give us a chance. I have to commend our guys for continuing to battle, to find opportunities and find wins, that's the nature of this group. I'm proud of that part, but, there's no moral victories like we talk about. We have to be able to play good football from snap one until the end.
I completely agree with that. I do think that, we have to be careful, and me included, me mainly, to not look at this through the moral victory lens because at some point you got to learn how to close. At some point things have to, you got to turn the tide. Like this became a winnable game. It was a potential blowout going into halftime, but then it became a winnable game, right? Or coming out of halftime, it was a blowout, but it became a very winnable game. So I just feel like you can walk away from this You don't want the team to feel like, hey, guys, it's okay that we lost because, man, you did so much great stuff. No. But I do think you can walk away with this kind of learning about the team and learning about yourself. And one of the things that I think that you can walk away with is realizing that the Carolina Panthers are not a run team. The Carolina Panthers are a passing team. The Carolina Panthers will go as Bryce Young goes. Again, I point out, 10 carries for 38 yards. Rico Dowdle, this is supposed to be the 1-2 punch. I seen people comparing this to Double Trouble. I seen people comparing this to Deshaun Foster and Steven Jackson, which salute to Deshaun, by the way. Just, he's a free agent at this point. But no, not even close. Now, if you want to say it's because the offensive line has regressed, if you want to say it's the type of, zone running plays that they're calling, however you want to frame it, this running game has regressed for a team who has invested a lot in the running game. We saw Trevor Etienne last week, was nowhere to be found this week. Right? Other than, returning kicks or whatever. So, yeah, that's not going to get it done on the ground. We're a passing team. And I think the end of the season last year, the few games that we saw towards the end of the game last year showed us that this can be a passing team. I think what we need to do is give the opportunities. Now, look, I get it. When you go down as early as we do, then you don't have a choice but to become a passing team. You can establish the run. And early on last week, we did indeed commit to the run, establish it, and it was working. But I believe that the identity of this team, in my opinion, my non-informed but humble fanship opinion, is that we are a passing team. We should be a pass-first team. You drafted a receiver, 8th overall, right? You should be a pass-first team. We saw what happened last year down the stretch when you were letting Bryce cook, if you will. Pass-first team. I think they should embrace it. All right. I know I'm not here live, but I do want to just kind of do some live kind of things. Thank y'all for joining me today on the One Carolina show for Mint Street Mondays. Before we get into what I would consider to be a very, very difficult topic, a very hot take topic, a topic that could potentially stir up some things within my little small circle of people that follow me. Make sure you smash that like button or dislike button if you don't like what we're saying, and subscribe to the channel. If you feel led to, you can join the channel to become a member of the One Carolina Show. The OCs is what we will affectionately start calling it. So click the join button and join and get into the membership game. And yeah, we just thank you for being here today. Invisible Brad will be joining us soon. One of my dear friends and one of the most knowledgeable Panther fans that I know. But not before I go over this last topic. Oh, man, this is difficult. This is where it gets tough. All right. So I want to start by telling the story first. I want to say it was 2017, 2018. I have to frame this up because this will be a hot take, and I know many people will probably be like, yo, this is a bridge too far, but I don't think so. Carson Wentz on an MVP tear, right? Gets hurt, and I believe it was like week 11 to 13, one or the other, right? And Nick Foles comes in and, leads the team down the stretch to a Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they win. And things started to change. And, is it possible that, maybe Carson regressed and this was, inevitable to happen, even if he had went on to, be the person that represented him in the Super Bowl? Maybe. But I just know that year he was on an MVP tear, right? And after that, it was never the same. Maybe the injury took effect. Psychologically, maybe you change as a quarterback because of, such a tough injury that you deal with, right? But many people, myself included, think that there was a little bit more to it than that. I'm one of those people that tend to believe that it was more when you see someone that replaces you and is successful, and then there's questions about whether or not with him, should you be the starter after we just did what we did? I know that you're really good. You were the, second overall pick, but man, we just won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, right? And then if you come out and struggle early, people will start looking at you away. So what I'm about to say is not from a place of necessarily performance, but more for the idea that some people just struggle to be in situations where they didn't live up to expectation and someone else came in and did. So as a result of that, I'm going to make a public declaration. I think we should trade Xavier Legette. I do. And the reason I think is not for, like I said, this is not an indictment on Xavier Legette. This is not, and I noticed in the lower third, should be a D and not an E, so I apologize about that up front. But I think that the drafting of Teteroa McMillan has affected XL's confidence. And when you see how well McMillan is playing out of the gate, you can tell that confidence is shaken. I'm not saying it's gone, but it is shaken nonetheless. Because some of these, the stat line today was egregious. This is just not stuff that you see from NFL players. And I think that before I would bench Legette, because I do still think that there's some real legitimate talent left in the tank. Before I bench Legette, I would give him a fresh start somewhere else. One of the reasons that I know that there's a confidence issue, and now not just a confidence issue in yourself, but also a confidence issue from a coaching staff perspective, is in situational football opportunities, he was not available. On a major fourth down in this game, when they're driving to win, he's not on the field. We got a PI. They threw the ball to it was, and oddly enough, this is one of those moments where I feel like if 19 was out there, we probably win this game, because that same kind of play, that little Bryce Young fade, throwing to Adam Thielen towards the boundary, you know what I'm saying, when the blitz is coming or the pressure breaks down, is the same thing that he did to Hunter Renfrow, and that's just not Hunter's game, right? So I think that Thielen makes that play in that moment. That still doesn't mean that I'm changing my mind about whether or not I felt like he should have been traded, because I think that you needed to do it for the youth movement to continue, right? And not for nothing, I understand that Bryson Tremaine plays special teams, right? But I'm not, in my opinion, I'm not going to allow that to be an excuse for why Jimmy Horn Jr. doesn't even get an opportunity. Like, think about what we were sold in the offseason. We were sold all this great stuff about Jimmy Horn and how fast he was and how well he ran routes and all this stuff. And if he's not injured and he's a healthy scratch, then what in the world happened? Did he regress that bad? Because on a play that I saw that they tried to run with XL, kind of this jet sweep, if you will, that's not his game. And it resulted in what we saw. A player that ends up with 8 targets and negative yards. It's the second time it's happened in NFL history. That is embarrassing for XL. The only other player that's happened to is Jamal Charles back in like 2016 or something like that. I think the stat I saw. That's extremely embarrassing for XL. And honestly, I do have some empathy for him. Now, he's a grown man playing a grown man sport and getting paid grown man money to play it, right? But I do think that part of this problem is a lack of confidence in yourself and a lack of confidence coming from the coaching staff and the quarterback in you. And I think that some of that is coming from the fact that they drafted you in the first round last year, and then they turn right back around and draft McMillan this year, which is a direct indictment on what they may perceive or feel about you. And I think that it could be good for him to maybe have a fresh start. And like I said, I know that's a bold take to have like right away, but in all reality, this is part of the problem. This right here cannot happen. This is XL running back into, this is situational football. And you watch. Jatavian Sanders makes this huge catch. Now we got a minute left on the clock. And Xavier Legette is kind of looking at the sideline. Hey, what are we doing, guys? Looking to the sideline. I'm lined up as an outside receiver. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was the one that clipped this, and so this clip is running around X right now, and people are sharing it like crazy. So I want to say this out loud because I know what happens when these things happen, and I didn't mean to start an engagement to make X look crazy. So I want to apologize for that. So if he sees this, I do want to apologize because I didn't mean to put you on blast like this. Because in all honesty, this wasn't about you. When I recorded this with my phone and clipped it with my phone, and you can hear me, what I'm saying, I didn't single out XL. I'll play my audio.
Please, right at the first down marker, Jatavian Sanders.
Yo, this is what I'm talking about right here. Look how many seconds are going off the clock, man. Where's the urgency? Get to the line. Let's go. If I had known what I knew about that in the moment when I was recording it, I don't know that I put that out there because I do kind of feel bad that the X is being put on blast for this. Now, some people will be like, nah, I don't feel bad, man, because this is, you need to know where you're at, what you're doing, what's going on in the moment. But I literally did think that when I was watching this, the X was lined up and was going in motion to try to see what the defense was doing. And then when I started seeing people in the comments like, yo, XL, what you doing, man, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yo. And I'm looking back at it like, bro was like literally walking. And the whole reason that it took a while for things to, and I mean, he wasn't the only one. You see Robert Hunt kind of just, walking up to the line. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's set, but there needed to be more urgency in that moment. Bryce is kind of, you could see him like kind of late, let's go, whatever. But X is just kind of like, and it's just like, man, huh? Those are precious seconds. Now, granted, this drive didn't turn into points, but still, how do you know that being set and on time doesn't throw the defense off? The defense might not even had an opportunity to be fully set. This is bad. This is a bad look. And like I said, I love this kid, man. I think everything about this kid is what the NFL is looking for. But I also think that the NFL platforming him as a superstar because of all the things that you've seen from him. We talked about this last year with an interview with Captain Munnerlyn. I saw something just a couple of days ago where Captain was quoted, and I did see that podcast from Cap, where Cap was quoted as like, yo, man, I mean, all the off-field stuff, here's the thing you can't do. You shouldn't blame XL for his extracurricular activities because of what he enjoys and loves to do, right? I don't think that would be fair to him because these guys have a life. But what you can bring into question is what you choose to turn the camera on and show us. Because if you don't perform, that stuff becomes ammo for people to come at you. And I don't think that's fair to him. I think this is a young man who's doing well for himself despite the fact that he's lost both of his parents. You know what I'm saying? Has risen above his circumstances and made it to the NFL. But at the same time, it is a production-based business, and it's not unfair for people to want to see him have more situational awareness and urgency. Remember all that stuff I was talking about with Mac, right? And so one would ask, like, why would you go to the extreme of saying that someone like him needs to be traded? I'll tell you why. I think it's because XL is one of those kind of guys that, in my opinion, would fare better in a place that is not trying to build a culture, but already has one established. A guy like McMillan can't go put his arm around XL. Why can't he? Man, get out of here. You a rookie. What, you know what I'm saying? Watch out. You know what I'm saying? I ain't listening to you. Not like that. Even though after you saw the performance that you saw today, hey, that's a big dog right there. That's a big dog in the room, right? So you can learn a few things, right? And as far as your development is concerned. But man, how many of y'all, if we just being honest and let's just call it what it is, man. If we being honest and you show up at the job, I done seen this before. I've worked in the car business for the last 15 years. Don't work in it at this very moment, but I was the last 15 years. Back when I was selling before finance, man, when I would watch new guys come in, some of the older guys, man, they was, setting their ways, didn't take ups, whatever you want to call it. And these young guys would come in and run circles around them and be selling cars like candy bars, right? And then management will be looking at them like, man, maybe y'all can teach these old guys a thing or two about what's going on with this here intranet now and all that kind of stuff. And they're looking at them like, man, are you crazy? I still got the Rolodex. And it's like, brother, you're going to get left behind. Sorry. Am I saying that that's where Excel is? Maybe, maybe not. But do I believe that potentially, before I would see someone that has this much physical talent, and maybe it turns around, but before I would see someone with this much physical talent be benched, maybe never to return, because we talking about effort issues. Bryce might have been turning the ball over, but it was never an effort issue. You know what I'm saying? There's other guys who have had struggles. Chuba Hubbard had struggles early in his career catching the ball. We saw today that some of that, still exists to some degree because there was a big miss earlier. But still, Chuba has risen above a lot of his other issues, not the effort. When I don't see a block last week, you know what I'm saying, that gets pointed out and you get embarrassed on national TV, and then me unknowingly, but now knowingly, so you can make an argument, hey man, why don't you take it down, post this video of urgency again, and understand the situational awareness of the moment, and you see this, it's just like, man, where's your head at, bro? Come on, man. It's too many people rooting for you. We want to see you succeed, bro, but this ain't it. So it's like, man, maybe a new scene could help you. Maybe a change of pace. Maybe this was just too much. Maybe we discounting the fact that bro is, a hometown hero. You at home, too close to proximity. Maybe you do need to go off, somewhere where it's like, look, I done been home for college. I went to USC. I'm home with my, the pro team. We don't know what's going on with, family maybe trying to, be too much in the business, relying on me too much. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a fresh start somewhere else. But I really believe that, like I said, this is hard. This was hard for me to even consider. But the reason I'm even bringing this up is because I'm like, man, I just don't know if it's going to work here because it just don't feel like bro is connected. And maybe he need to go somewhere with an established culture where a coach will come up to him and see a situation like that. And then we see what I said the other day on X when I talked about Matt LaFleur. There was a clip of Matt LaFleur on the sideline jawing at what looked like a special teams player. It wasn't even somebody that was like one of the main guys or whatever. It could have been, I don't know their roster that well. To me, it looked like it was a special teams player, right? But this looked like it was one of the guys that's just made some kind of mistake. Who knows what that mistake was? I don't know. All I know is this. This is what it resulted in. And when you have a lack of effort on the sideline, this is what you should see. If there's a lack of effort on the field, whether it's a block or situational awareness, I need somebody to come to me and tell me what's up, right? So maybe it would be better for a guy like him to go to a culture where somebody would do that on the sidelines. And maybe he won't respond to it well. But guess what? He'll know where you stand. And maybe he'll learn a thing or two from it. Rough. Let's make that call. Shout out to my man Invisible Brad.
How goes it?
What's happening, man?
You know how it is, man. Trying to win,
I hear that.
not to see.
Not a sin. Hey, look, so today was a very interesting game, man. And we're gonna get to the real of the game, but I'm gonna start where I left off because I'm kind of hot into this conversation. So I talked about the Xavier Legette thing, man, and I told you that I was gonna say this, and I mentioned that I feel like Xavier Legette should be traded. And I know that this is probably going to be very controversial. Might be clipped and people be like, yo, this is crazy because I'm probably one of the only people out here that's going to say this. And I'm not saying it from the perspective of like Xavier Legette is a bad guy, Xavier Legette is a bad teammate. But I think that when you're trying to build a culture, there are certain types of guys you need in the locker room. And I don't know that you have any locker room guys that are willing to challenge what we saw today. Brad, I'll mention this. So I had clipped an effort situation, like talking about urgency, right? We had just converted first down. We're driving, we're going into halftime. We don't get the ball back at halftime, by the way, right? And so, when you're going through 2-minute drill, like these guys are supposed to be like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And like when I was watching it, at first, before I realized, I thought XL was going in motion, and I thought that the play was getting ready to be ran. I had no idea that Xavier Legette was lined up as an outside receiver opposite, McMillan on the other side as the X, and he was like literally where the defense was and had to beeline in order for the ball to get snapped, and we lost like 6, 7, 8 seconds in that moment. And then I thought about last week. I thought about that, lack of blocking that Mark Schlereth pointed out online. And I was just like, you know what, man? Like, for the sake of him and the salvaging of a career, instead of imploding, maybe due to the fact that they drafted another receiver in the first round, why not by the deadline just trade him, man? You know what I'm saying? And give him a fresh start somewhere else, somewhere where maybe he can go and and get cultured up, in a place. Do you think I'm taking this too far?
Well, like I was saying before, I mean, we all become spoiled because we see, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, these guys jumping off the page immediately on touching the grass, you know what I'm saying, the NFL. And it's just like, you want that immediate impact with your guy.
Mm-hmm.
Legette is a, 5-year guy, got the extra COVID year. I mean, he really, really wasn't a super big deal until his senior year. I mean, he had, a kickoff return, a couple plays here and there. There's a lot of stuff off the field with the guy. And I'm not talking about, being online and all of his, videos, the skinning the squirrel, all the different things he's done, riding with Jimmy, all the different stuff, the Glorilla stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can point to and be like, well, I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying about off the field, but he's dealt with a lot of loss. He's dealt with a lot of things coming in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I'm seeing all kinds of stuff to the point of just outright bashing the kid. But, I mean, it's a second year, and we do not have that veteran receiver. I mean, some people say it's Hunter Renfrow, but I mean, you could see from the interview when they did with Legette after, Adam Thielen left, he was like, he's the guy that's been here teaching us all these different things. And yeah, we got to step up. But you can see the disappointment in his face.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and we all saw the pictures. We've seen a lot of film, a lot of, shots to the sideline where it's just him and Adam Thielen standing there, and Adam's talking to him, and he's telling him different things. I mean, like, because you would think, and this is the hope, when you have those elder statesmen, that this guy's going to teach this guy something, and we're going to pair this, knowledge, these, cheats to the test with this younger guy, and then he's going to leap and bounds and, just jump out the box and jump off the page. And, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think the trade is a thing where, I mean, it surprised us that somebody gave us a fourth for Mingo, but I mean, XL hasn't really put that much on tape.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a partner there. So, to me, it's a bit far. But I'll tell you this. I mean, the dude looks completely lost this year.
He does. He really does, yeah.
On top of the absent-mindedness and, what can be perceived as laziness, You know, I mean, he just looks completely lost, like he doesn't belong at all.
And that is that's a tough pill to swallow because I see a lot of talent there. You know, but I also wonder like I wonder if maybe from a personnel perspective, the usage is off. Like, what if Xavier Legette is just your? Because one thing I don't really see a lot from him, I see them trying to do a lot of different, like, you know, hey, run a drag. Hey, man, run an in breaking route. Try to, you know, run a curl. What if it's just like, yo, put him in the slot, let him go one on one with you know, on a post with a linebacker and a safety and see what happens. You know what I'm saying? Like you have your ex receiver established. Like McMillan is the real deal. You've got that established now. You can do some different things with Xavier Legette. Not an end around and a jet sweep because we saw that look terrible today, right? That was part of his negative yards. But there's some other things that you can do with him to get him involved in the game, right? And or at least, if nothing else, you mentioned this off camera, a decoy.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think majorly he has been our decoy. I mean, he is running off coverage. I saw a breakdown of the film last week, and there were some plays where, I mean, you know, maybe you have a little stronger arm, maybe you have a little more time in the pocket that you can hit him, you know, going down the stream over the top. But those plays do need time to develop. And then on top of that, you know, we see McMillan getting those touches that he got last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were games where they were forcing the ball to get. I mean, and he answered, you know, some of the calls, but you know, he left them hanging on the other end on quite a few other calls.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can definitely tell that he's running interference right now. And I mean, and every receiver has to do that. I mean, we've seen A.J. Smith be angry when he had to do it, you know, for Devontae Smith. I mean, you got guys that don't like that role, but then, you know, they get, you know, a few shots a game to show what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, dude was targeted 7 times.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
8 times.
8 times, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I seen on 2 different sites. One was 8, one was 7. But
Yeah.
it was, you know, -2 yards. I mean, that hadn't been done since Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
Had -6.
That's
I mean,
right.
It's real. If you're a defender of Excel, I mean, and people have said, you know, that I've been that at certain times, but it looks real bad right now.
I mean, it's
the first rounder you got to be big impact.
yeah.
And he's given us -2 yards.
Yeah. It's hard not to be, but then sometimes it's also hard to put someone in a box. And this is again, I just want to make sure that I'm clear when I say this. My saying, I know this, it looks like a visceral reaction when you see, wow, Legette should be traded. It's not so much for the egregious play or the fault of, you know, him not showing effort or whatever it is. Maybe it's more positive for him, is my viewpoint. Maybe he goes somewhere where from a personnel perspective, they understand how to use him better. You know what I'm saying? So, and then we kind of recoup whatever we can, because the reality is, man, is if he does flame out, I mean, we burnt a first round pick in a year that we could have really, I mean, there's so many other players that you could look at that could have been drafted in that spot. And then here's the other thing. I don't feel like it's entirely fair to Legette on some levels, because I think everybody that scouted him knew that he was a project. Everybody, right? And maybe we're expecting more of where he was drafted from, but not necessarily where he was in his development coming into the league.
Well, I mean, when you look at some of the picks after that a lot of Panther fans wanted, I mean, Austin Corbett was seen with a huge ice pack on his knee, and he was crying. I mean, it's the same leg, you know, that he messed his knee up last year. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So he's struggling to stay healthy. I mean, Cade Mays looked competent down the stretch last year, but you do have a Zach Frazier in Pittsburgh who is, they're already talking about the confidence that, a guy like Aaron Rodgers has in him to where he'll even listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
you got Lad McConkey, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Uh, he's more than serviceable, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so when you see this, so much, just the lack of effort, you do need a guy that has, that kind of, culture building aspect about him, like an AT, Adam Thielen, to be there for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know how it is. I mean, when you've got nothing but young guys, it's kind of like the patients are running the asylum. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
who is there? I mean, they talk about this all the time in the NBA world.
Mm-hmm.
How a guy like Udonis Haslam, even though people are like, man, what is he even getting paid for?
Mm-hmm.
He is still bringing that heat culture every single day.
Yeah.
So when a new guy comes in, and you see this man who was, almost 40, and he's doing the fat test,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing the endurance stuff, you got to fall in line because everybody's going to look at you funny.
Yeah.
And with us, everybody's new. Everybody's young. I mean, you have, like you said, meaningful football. I mean, you have Robert Hunt, Turk, that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, that's about it for the entire roster.
Yeah.
So you got to understand that, I mean, the kids, all these kids are doing it on their own. I mean, they're building the plane while they're flying.
That's a good point, and what he's speaking of. If you're listening, and thank you for listening to the Once Carolina show on Mint Street Mondays. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and bell notification so you never miss a video. What he's speaking of is a conversation that we had behind the scenes about how there's not many. When you look at that situation, that third down. Oh, excuse me, that late second drive, second quarter. Sorry, 2-minute drive situation. There aren't a lot of sources to pull from to know. Now, granted, yes, there's not a lot of sources to pull from as far as like people that have had championship experience or even playoff experience, short of Robert Hunt and Turk Wharton, maybe for the exception of a couple of others, Damian Lewis maybe. But that's situational football 101. When you're in a 2-minute drill, so you just got to be aware of your surroundings. And it makes you wonder, like when you think about. This is where I'll go more towards the potential indictment of not just him, but maybe even the coaching staff to a degree. But where I would go more like, a little bit more not in Excel's favor is like you had to have known where you were and what was going on in the game at that time. And when you think of the lack of effort last week and then you got this situation here, it's just like, is this more like I'm not really into the game, you know what I'm saying? Like things aren't really going in my way. So I'm kind of like just, dragging or whatever. Like who knows? But it was it's a bad look however you decide to look at it. But going to the next, what I want to ask you about, man, was like.
Well, I mean, real quick, I want to add, like, I mean, that's something
Yeah, go ahead.
You do have to get more adept at as you are in the league, is knowing exactly when to be focused. I mean, you would think with these guys playing football their entire lives it would be a thing, but like there's still growth in that area.
Yeah.
Clock awareness, all those things. And this is where it does go to the, the point of someone like a Belichick where the players do say stuff like, man, it was not fun there, but we won.
Mm-hmm.
And so all
That's
those
a good point.
small things. I had a friend who's a big Patriots fan, and he would always say, listen, when, we watched a few of the games when Cam went to New England, he was like, you'll see not just Cam playing different, you'll see the fact that Belichick does a lot of small things really well, like clock management. And, all that goes to say there's another sample size that's being built at, UNC. But as far as his Super Bowl years, I mean, you hear those guys. I mean,
yeah.
Takeo, Brandon, all those guys, they got to understand that this is what it is every single time, clock management. awareness of where you're at, what's going on, what the next play is, what the down and distance is, so you don't make those silly mistakes and cost that kind of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. So with that being said, let me ask you this. Do you see a world that exists where Canales' seat is already hot?
I don't think at this point that it can be hot. You know what I mean? We're in, the man's second year. He's got a quarterback he didn't draft. Now, this is also the tenets of competent organizations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you give a guy a chance.
Right.
You give the guy a chance to draft his quarterback. You give a guy a chance to have his defensive coordinator. I mean, we were all excited, because again, they're supposed to be homeboys. You think he's going to bring Robert Saleh, but they still, and I don't want to think it's something as minuscule as the draft pick we would get for, having a Vero as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
if he went somewhere different and got a, better position. But I don't understand, the reasoning behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And I still feel like the guy's working uphill. I do think he could get a better offensive coordinator. I mean, he's been bringing Isaacs along with him, everywhere he's went. But you're calling the plays. He's a, every offensive coordinator that's been there under Andy Reid. You know what I mean? Like, it's been 4 or 5 of them now.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he's calling the plays.
Right.
And so people tend to throw that, negativity against, or even not negativity, but just, who is this guy? What does he do? I mean, players were like, we've heard, Shady McCoy say, hey, all he did was yell at people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he did there.
That's a fact.
He was the coordinator.
Yeah.
Everything we were doing, Andy was doing.
Right.
So on that end, I mean, I don't feel like that. But then, I mean, you take in the extras. I mean, the big part of this, completely golden coaching staff that we were supposed to have hired under Frank Wright, like some of those guys are still there.
Mm-hmm. Vero.
And
yeah.
Well, I mean, not just Vero, but I mean, Don Capers is a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The guy that coached Peyton Manning, coached under Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell on the other side. But there still seems to be no direction. There still seems to be so many little mistakes that have to do with the mental stuff.
Yeah.
If anything, these guys seemingly would, their influence would help shore some of that up.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you don't see it.
No, you don't. And I mentioned earlier, I said I feel like the seat might be tan, but it's not hot. Tan from the perspective of who we have that's sitting at the ultimate leadership position. So that looking down, he's probably none too pleased about what he's seeing, but not hot yet. But I do think if you go 0-3, if Atlanta comes to the bank and it doesn't look as competitive as it looked last year down the stretch against them, things can start changing. I think going into this game, I feel like there was a possibility that those changes at behind center could have changed up until we saw what we saw, towards the end of the game. And I know some people, I don't like this. I don't agree with this, right? But there are some people out there that are suggesting that Bryce's comeback was more a result of cleanup time and Arizona mailing it in. I don't believe that personally. But what say you? Do you feel like this was a, hey, we're up 27-3. There's no threat here. Like, okay, yeah, they scored a touchdown. They won't score again. Oh, they scored another touchdown. We'll hold them this time. Oh, they got a 2-point, onside kick. And here we are in a situation where we could potentially lose. Do you feel like it was more they mailed it in, or you think Bryce locked in? And because I have my thoughts and my beliefs, I think you know what they are. But what say you on that?
I mean, well, admittedly, you got to be honest. The Cardinals played like a much softer look up until the last drive.
Yes, they didn't go as
I mean,
aggressive. I agree with that.
yeah, they did not blitz once. In the first half, especially, specifically the first couple of drives,
Mm-hmm.
they walked everybody up to the line. A couple times it was an all-out blitz. They pulled some guys. But, I mean, there was always an extra person coming, and we had no answer for it.
Right.
So once they jumped out, 10, 13, then 20, they completely backed off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so you think about both plays, not both plays, both drives of our, last two touchdowns, they were 14-play drives.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell you? It was a lot of underneath stuff.
Mm.
And so that, basically leans to the thought of they were playing more of a lackadaisical prevent type defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bryce was still executing, but when you come to the very end of the game, we didn't get a positive yard outside of the penalties.
Right.
So there is definitely validity to that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, and you may have said this. I'm sorry if I'm repeating something you said, but I felt like on that last drive, specifically, man, like everything seemed to be aiming for the end zone. Like now I know the protection was breaking down, but it was like, man, the sticks are short. Like you can kind of work your way down with like, a couple of, like you just working the sidelines, outs, and then you got one chance in the end zone if it comes down to, a few seconds left. So it does just kind of feel situationally like, the team isn't, it just felt like at the end, things just kind of it wasn't called the way that you would hope that it would be called in that moment. And that kind of makes me nervous too, because it's just like, man, when we're in these big situations, like, and let's just say you have some, meaningful games and you're going down the stretch and maybe there's a playoff line, berth on the line. Like, you want to be able to trust the play calling, but you also want to be able to trust that your quarterback don't turn the ball over like crazy either. And I think that, both things that can be highlighted in this, comeback and then also this loss.
Well, when you look at the fact that, one thing I always look at is the fact that Patrick Mahomes and his off-script plays got a lot of guys drafted higher and got them evaluated differently than before.
That's a bar.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young is late on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at these guys that were drafted after, Mahomes worked his magic for a couple of years, and all of them are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson, he's got him, everybody went crazy when he threw it running right 70 yards, in T-shirts and shorts inside of a practice facility.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going crazy over Caleb Williams. The point is, can these guys get it done on time?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I heard Nate Tice say last week on a podcast that Bryce is the best short quarterback at throwing across the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like at the end of the game, he was high on all those throws.
Mm.
Now, I don't fault him for taking the shot with Legette.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it could have been a better ball. I mean, throw it higher, throw it up, and let the guy go and get it. You know what I mean? Like the kind of just way it died at the end. And the thing is, I've seen him make that throw before. I think that's something he's working on. But there were just a lot of opportunities there that he missed.
Yeah.
He missed on the Legette throw. It was a great play by Will Johnson, but he missed on that throw. He missed on the throw across the middle to Hunter Renfrow.
Mm-hmm.
He missed on the throw to Jatavion Sanders. And he barely missed on that. That was one that, like we talked about before, a good tight end is going to be closer to making that catch than to popping it up and fall on his back and the ball rolls out the back of the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, again, I feel like there were options there. I feel like he missed on some of the throws. And then as far as the Jatavion Sanders, again, he was let down. So it's such a mixed bag. The thing that changed during this game was when they were coming back. I'm thinking like, oh, okay, well, man, they are looking competent.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, when they looked so bad in the first half, there were so many negatives that I was, coach, quarterback, line, everybody other than, T-Mac was completely crapping the bed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
as they came back and looked a little more competent, there was still some good things they were doing. But, man, at the end when, Arizona turned it back up with a couple of pressures, we couldn't get a yard. And who's that on? I mean, some of that's on Bryce.
Mm-hmm.
I would say most of that's on Bryce. Some of that's on the offensive line, and of course, some falls on Canales.
And that's how when you say who's it on, there's a lion's share of blame to go around, no doubt, right? But from a coaching perspective, I go back to something that I had mentioned before about watching the Jerry Jones documentary, Jerry and the Gambler and his Cowboys. There was something that stood out to me, man. Like when Troy Aikman became so just infuriated with the way that Barry Switzer was coaching, and this is what I was talking about when I mentioned, Xavier Legette being traded. It's like when you're trying to establish a culture, sometimes if you don't have, if the culture doesn't exist already, you can at least draw from the well that you came from, right? So these guys remembered how Jimmy used to coach. And so the few guys that, Barry had to wrap his arms around, like Charles Haley and, some other guys, like those guys needed that kind of special attention, but the majority of the team needed the way that Jimmy used to coach with that kind of, mean, like, demonstrative attitude, but where they felt a sense of, what would I say, completion when they felt like they did something that Jimmy was proud of because of how hard he was on them at times, right? But never so hard on them that they didn't feel like they were worth anything. And a lot of those guys responded well to that. I feel like with these guys, like, they don't really have that to draw from because there's no blueprint that's been set for that for the Carolina Panthers other than what they see on the walls when they walk into the place. Because there's nobody on any coaching staff no person on this coaching staff that has the kind of mentality that like a McDermott or a Rivera had that's walking through those doors, right? So, and then of course Shaq is out of the building, so you don't have any of these guys that ever had the experience of playing for any one of these guys to be able to tell you like, no, this is how we used to do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this kind of more passive approach. I just don't think it works for men. And that's why I think that in the situation that you're seeing right now, when we talk about urgency, play calling, all these different kind of things, it's like something just feels off. It feels like this team doesn't believe a lot of times, right? And even, because even the turnovers, man, like, I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I looked on the sideline after that first fumble, and I saw Bryce kind of smiling on the sideline, that same kind of smirk from last year when he threw that pick in the opening drive, and I was like, bro, ain't nothing funny, bro. You know what I'm saying? If I'm keeping it, if I'm keeping the butt, ain't nothing funny, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't understand. Like, I know you like that. You know your ability, right? And maybe in the back of his mind, he thinking like, yeah, if y'all get me out of here, I'm gonna show you really what's up if I go somewhere that I get another chance. But like, why not just capitalize while you here? Ain't nothing funny about it. Just get to it.
Well, I mean, the thing is about him going somewhere else, like with the way he operates currently, the way he operated at Alabama, like there are going to be limitations to your offense with him as your quarterback.
Yeah.
There are certain throws across the middle. Because, I mean, let's be honest, like Dave Canales' big, claim to fame is one of the bounce back seasons for Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield's 6 feet tall, barely. But he can make those throws deep down the field and across the middle to keep the defense honest.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see that consistently with Bryce. And I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, there's all kinds of factors that go into it. Like one of the big things from the fans are, man, I mean, he's got the worst supporting cast ever. Like he would be better if he had better players around him. But we also gotta understand, I mean, you gotta elevate people.
Absolutely.
Now, if everything's hindered because of your, small stature, because of your mentals, because of your laissez-faire attitude, whatever it is, that's something you got to fix.
Yes.
And but the problem is everything looks so wonky at this point that you don't know if it's him or if it's Canales.
And the sad thing about that, Brad, is that like outside of like just unbelievable luck and special treatment, there is more than a 90% chance that we won't get to see what it would look like if it was somebody else. And honestly, that would be fair. I think if this team were to only win 4 games, I mean, he would. I saw. So there's a tweet going around that says that Bryce Young. I'm gonna see if I can find this really quick so that the show can see it as well. But there's a tweet going around that suggests that that Bryce Young right now is on pace to throw for 4,100 yards and 34 touchdowns. Right. I personally believe that that's what it would take in order for Bryce Young. To me, that's what it would take for Bryce Young to be around next year if we only win like 4 games. Like,
so you saying something to put us out of the position to draft a quarterback or like the guy?
I mean, I think that if you win 4 games, you know what I'm saying, you're probably – because, I mean, I think a lot of people thought New York, when you look at it, people think like, well, New York's going to be awful. You know what I'm saying? And, I saw what I saw today, and New York's going to be fine, right? Cleveland's probably going to be awful, I would say Cleveland would probably end up being the worst team in the league. I don't think we'd be far behind. I mean, many people would argue that we are the worst team in the league, right? I just feel like, okay, here it is. I found it. So they said, I'm sorry, I was a little distracted here for a second, but it says it's very early, but Bryce is on pace for 4,100 passing yards and 34 touchdowns, by the way, right? And then somebody else tweeted like, don't look at the interception projection. But I feel like if you throw that many touchdowns, that many yards, that hadn't been done in quite some time. As a matter of fact, the last quarterback to throw for 30-plus touchdowns in the season won an MVP, and that was Cam Newton in 2015, who threw 35, I believe. He accounted for, I want to say, in the neighborhood of like 40-plus, like 45, 46 touchdowns, but he threw 35.
And think about the 9 that Ted Ginn dropped.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. So it to me it wouldn't be like when Watson had gotten paid, you know what I'm saying, and he wanted out that next year. But like Watson went on a similar tear where he threw like 40 something or like 4,200 yards. It was like 30 something touchdowns to only like 7 picks and had a 70% completion percentage, 90 passer rate and something like that. But they only won 4 games. In this situation, it's different. Like, in addition to having that stat line, we also would need to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10, 8 and 9, something like that to me for them to say like, okay, yeah, Bryce is coming back for another season. Because if you do bring him back next year, you're like, now you're in like contract talk, season. And of course, Bryce ain't going to command a huge number because of the production that you've seen up until this point. But what you would stand to potentially lose is either him, you don't want to get in a situation where you go in the next year and then if the contract talks aren't to his liking, then he say, well, I'm at no liberty to stick around here. I can, kind of do what I want to do, and, next year I'm going to test the market. They got the 5th-year option, so obviously that's in their favor. But then after that, they could test the market. But again, if something like that, I know we're projecting and we're just looking way ahead, but I don't know that it goes so well for him this season where if we end up with the second or third overall pick, or even number one, that they just pass and say, like, because, I mean, think about it. If you end up with the number one overall pick and many people think someone like Lenoris Sellers could be a Josh Allen archetype, are you really going to pass on that for Bryce?
It depends on the rest of the season. I mean, if he was, because I mean, you were saying 4 wins. Like, I can't get excited about 4 wins. That's one less win than last year.
Me either.
And it'll get you closer, one pick closer to drafting higher, number one. But the thing about that is, when you have a team who has all these holes to fill, I mean, you can look at somebody who has 2 first rounders next year, like LA Rams, and maybe you can trade back. Maybe you can, get those 2 first picks, and then they can take whoever they want. I don't know if that'll be a quarterback or not. I mean, Matt Stafford has had back problems, and I don't know where that's going. I mean, he's looked, fine the first 2 weeks of the season, but maybe they go and get a quarterback, and, that would be an ideal situation, get a quarterback, put him behind him. But they also have, they have other holes to fill as well. So, I mean, you could look at maybe trading back, but I mean, if he gives you less than 5 wins and he looks like this doing it, you got to give yourself the option of going out and getting someone else.
Well,
let's be honest. This has happened to a lot of teams.
It has, yeah.
I mean, I'm saying San Diego was like, we're going to go get Phillip Rivers because Drew Brees, I mean, he's had some ups and downs and he's played well, but we don't know where this is going.
Can I be honest with you? That scares me to death. I ain't even gonna lie. It scares me to death that
we would be that team.
Yes, that we
the guy, the
yep,
new guy, and then someone else. I mean, not someone else, but then Bryce played, really well
elsewhere because he has look.
Oh,
huh?
So you're not saying so you're saying if we get someone else, move on from Bryce immediately. So what would it be to say if we drafted a quarterback but we kept Bryce next year?
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. The reason, no. And the reason because one, you can't justify to me, I feel like smart teams do what the Giants are trying to do. The fan base is going crazy. They're doing the same thing that the Chiefs did with Pat, right? Because we did see Pat a few times in his rookie season, but it was few and far between. Jackson Dart a few times today, would get in and a couple of zone reads, and Cam Scatterbo took off and had a real big game. When I just said his name. What's his name? Jackson Dart. Excuse me. When Dart was in the game, but I just feel like if you're going to draft a guy, especially if you're going to take a guy like Lenoris, please have a strategy of development. I hope they don't just throw him out there. This should be a learning experience for Tepper. Don't just throw him to the wolves. And I also think that, if you ask me right now in my heart of hearts, I'll say it out loud because many people probably want me to say something like this because I get these kind of questions often. In my heart of hearts right now, do I think that Bryce Young will be the starting quarterback of the Panthers next year? No. I would hope so, but I don't think he will because I think we've seen enough at this point to suggest that he just doesn't have the type of physical tools to lift up an offense and bring it to the next level, right? But do I believe that in the Brock Purdy role, in an offense like Shanahan's in San Francisco, what do I think Bryce Young would do in a situation like that? I believe he would eat. And I would hope that that's something that we could build here, but I just don't know that we're going to be able to do that in his era, right? So I do see a situation where he could be a Breeze, like you just mentioned, and we draft a Phillip Rivers, or he could be a Steve Young, you know what I'm saying, and go sit behind somebody for a while and debut again and learn so much, you know, and then get an opportunity in a much better situation for him. Not necessarily it's a better situation, you know, for us, but more for him in that situation. And I would hope at the same time that if he does that, that we figure out similar to, I mean, look, this wouldn't be the first time we've seen this story, you know, like we just talked about it, or I talked about it before you jumped on. Carson Wentz, number 1 overall pick, right? And, you know, didn't win a Super Bowl, but was on an MVP tear. And not many, 4 years later, they draft Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, and Carson's still on the team, right? So, and then we see what Jalen has become. So it's not a foreign concept, but I do think that in order for you to really build a roster like legitimately, you have to have some stability at that position. So the idea, and there's another idea floating around, I'll ask you about this, about whether or not Bryce should be benched. You know, obviously coming after what we just saw, many people would say no, but there are still some people out there that are like, man, Bryce should, you know, you got to start thinking about it at least. And I completely disagree with that. I think he should play out this entire season as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if he's not hurt, like, you got to play the kid out. I mean, there have been numerous quarterbacks in the past that we've watched struggle, Drew Brees being one of them, Peyton Manning being another. You know, a lot of people are going to be like, well, I mean, those are the great quarterbacks. Don't compare Bryce to them. What, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. It's just that it took a certain number of years for it to pop for them.
Right.
And I chose those two particularly because they're on the opposite sides of the spectrum. I mean, on the left, you've got diminutive, you know, Drew Brees, had a really nice, you know, arm, but not the best arm.
Mm-hmm.
Learned to throw on time with Sean Payton. Had an offense that consistently put up points week after week. He had a much better accuracy, though, than Bryce.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at Peyton. I mean, and Peyton is, you know, Archie's boy, 6'5". You know, there's not those same kind of issues of the restrictions that you had with Breeze, but it still took to like year 4 to pop. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So
that's the hard part of it is, in this day and age, are we going to wait on these guys?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we saw, you know, Josh Rosen, but we also saw, you know, Kyler Murray look like shite for 2 or 3 years, and they then paid him, and he's still the quarterback, and he still has a lot of those limitations, but they've invested in him,
mm-hmm.
and they're, you know, riding it out.
Yeah.
And there was a point where he got a little bit better than it been, but still in the end, I mean, we saw it today. I mean, there's certain things, certain throws that are tough for him to make. The only thing about, you know, the difference between him and Bryce is he's, you know, 15 to 20 pounds heavier, and he has a cannon.
Yeah.
But he's still a little guy.
Yep. You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I did say to you, I was like, I feel like, you know, I heard this from someone about Jalen Hurts, about how he consistently calls Peyton Manning, you know what I'm saying? And like Peyton Manning's kind of become like a mentor to him. And, you know, he'll ask him like, you know, how did I do, man? How did I play? You know, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I feel like after watching, you know, the early game today and seeing Russell Wilson, the deep ball, man, like I feel like that's an area of opportunity for Bryce. And even though they might not be the same in build and stature, I feel like as a shorter quarterback, you know, that's something that maybe, you know, a Russell Wilson can kind of, you know, help maybe give you a couple pointers on, like, man, you know, maybe, you know, this is how you want to hitch. This is how, you know, you want your feet to be set. And, you know, or this is maybe something you want to look for because of how this lineman is or whatever like that, you know, and maybe try something like that. It's like, oh, okay. You know, and one little small thing that somebody gives you can click, and then it turns into, you know, a career changer for you, right? Hakeem Olajuwon, you know, would bring these guys in, man, in the offseason, and he wasn't bringing them in to teach them the dream shake because that's not something that they could learn. You know, that was something that's a God-given gift. Like, you can't do that like me. But what I can do is teach you the post moves that lead to it, and then you make your own thing out of it. And it changed a lot of guys' careers. You know what I'm saying? Just from that, the little small little pointers, you know what I'm saying? Something that you might see. Maybe you look at a corner, and if he moves in this direction just a little bit, oh, I know what you're doing. He's blitzing. Or, or if you see a guy, a linebacker that comes up to the line of scrimmage, like maybe he'll, and this is part of what film will teach you as well. But then also some of these guys that kind of teach you how to look at it and be like, oh, when this guy does this, sometimes he's trying to disguise it, but the truth is that he's going to bail, right? And then he does it. And so I had heard this, and I'm not going to look for this clip right now, but just to kind of speak to this point a little bit further before we wrap. I'd heard Tom Brady, talking about this on Colin Cowherd's show, and he was talking about quarterback development and how the lack thereof in the league right now, and how all these little small intricate details are so important to their development. And one of the things that he mentioned, because Colin asked him a question, he was like, hey man, look, by year 2, you see a guy, by Thanksgiving, man, this ain't it. Especially when you see like a Stroud do so well so quick, or Jaden Daniels, or name your player that came out and played well right away, especially in this NFL. The part of the conversation is like, well, because you got these guys are playing 7-on-7s when they're like 17 years old. They're doing all this like quarterback development at such young ages. By the time they get to the league, like, oh man, they should be ready. And Brady countered his point and was like, well, you're talking about a quarterback should be ready, but how do we know? And you should know that he's the guy. How do you know that the staff is the guy? How do you know that you're dealing with a top-ranked, offensive coordinator or a quarterback's coach or whatever like that, asking you different questions, teaching you different things? And when you see some of the stuff that's going on and has gone on the past 2 years, one of the biggest travesties I think that would ever happen if we did see this kid go on to be successful somewhere else is like, man, we did not set up a good situation for him, man. And that's the part that makes me kind of nervous, because it's just like, it's so Jekyll and Hyde, Brad. It's like when all things are working together, if he's getting the protection that he needs, play calls are there. You see it, man. You've seen it today. You've seen it, down the stretch last year. But it just makes me wonder, like, is it really? Do you think it's more? And I'll ask this question, and we can, kind of close it out with this. Do you feel like it's more? That's more from the perspective of like, this guy's just not developing well, or do you think it's the coaching, or a mixture of both?
Well, I mean, you gotta understand, like, when you look at the tea leaves, and if everything has to be perfect for a guy to be successful, then I feel like you have to move on from that guy, or you have to move on from that coaching staff. Mm-hmm. But in the end, most of that falls on the guy, because I mean, let's just look at different situations. I mean, we all, thought that there's always a chance with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. Mm-hmm. But when they were doing the introductions during the Tampa Bay Kansas City Super Bowl, we saw that Mike Remmers was his starting right tackle, and then we all were like, wait a minute. And he still got some things done in that game because he is Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. And there were some guys that let him down with some drops, but he still made the plays, and everything wasn't perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've seen that, we've seen our guy, what I'm saying? Cameron Jarrell Newton. I mean, the dude had undrafted defensive tackle starting for him on his offensive line. Another guy, Byron Bell, late pick, undrafted guy, and still got the Panthers to a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Still got the Panthers to multiple playoff berths.
Yeah.
Couple of those seasons, you're throwing to guys like Kalen Clay. Went to the Super Bowl with a guy in Philly Brown who disappeared off the face of the earth once we got rid of it.
Yeah.
To the, you know what I mean? Like you said, Ted Ginn was nothing more than a, kick returner, punt returner, extraordinaire. He was the guy that was doing the jet sweep reverses. Mm-hmm. Let's say he doesn't drop 4 or 5 of those touchdowns. He's a Pro Bowler that
year. Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to go with this full youth movement, then he's going to have to make something happen with these young guys. There are some plays here that they should have made, but there are also just a plethora of plays where it should have been easier.
Right.
The third down pass where we had to punt to Jatavion Sanders, like, yeah, the ball may have hit the ground, may have moved. I've seen him call that a catch before, but it shouldn't have been that hard.
Right.
That should have been an easy completion up around his numbers for, an easy first down. And it turned into, this miraculous catch he had to make. So I feel like, man, like, dude has his issues. And then let's go back to this glorious coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Frank Wright, super small era that we had in Carolina, they were talking about how it was a dream staff. And you had Frank, who had played quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You had Jim Caldwell, who, coached Peyton Manning. And it looked pretty bad, but then, you come out with all these reports that, like, there's all this backbiting. There are people who are reporting directly to David Tepper.
Mm-hmm.
Tepper is writing plays down on napkins and being like, "Hey, Frank, I saw this. Why won't this work?"
Yeah.
Kind of just unmitigated nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The gall of this guy to, listen, man, like, you don't know football and you're talking to the coach, so you don't respect him. You end up firing him. Then you bring in Canales. You still got Jim Caldwell.
Mm-hmm.
You had Canales, who, a lot of people will fight you on the aspect of, did he really turn around Baker's career? Because he's looked good ever since.
Mm-hmm.
But also, he was a part of it.
He was definitely a part of it.
You know what I mean? And the wide receivers coach was Izzy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's becoming blatantly aware and apparent that Bryce doesn't really fit in with Canales' offense. But you also think like he struggled to fit in with Frank's offense. So at this point, you've gone through two different play callers.
Yeah.
Two different regimes, two different styles.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank was play action, 6-step drop. I mean, he's still doing 90 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Canales does have more quick hitters, more imaginative play calling. So what's next? Like, what is the system that you could see him in, whether it be West Coast or dink and dunk, or like, what could you see him in where he would make this, proposed resurgence with another team? Because that's where I don't see it.
Well, see, I don't think it's necessarily system related. Because I think that Bryce can do things in any system. Some things he might be limited in others. Like you're not gonna zone read, any kind of like where I'm gonna pull the ball back and take off running. You're not gonna see Bryce Young ever do that. He get killed in the league. You know what I'm saying? So of course you're not gonna see that. But I don't think it's as much that as much as it is in a place where you have guys that know their jobs and execute it to perfection. Mac Jones today in San Francisco looked like Mac Jones the rookie. You know what I'm saying? That's coaching. Because Mac looked good his first year, and then things fell off the rails when I think they lost a coordinator. Maybe it was, I can't remember who their coordinator was his rookie season, right, in New England. But now you look at Mac in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, and he looks competent again. You know what I'm saying? So I do think that in the right place with the right kind of like support system, not saying that the Carolina Panthers don't have that. What I'm saying is that like it's a lot to put on when you strip some. This would have been a lot for anybody, Brad, and I think that's really my larger point, because most people want to put it directly on Bryce Young, right? And that's right. Fair. That is fair. I'm done arguing with people about that. People know where I stand when it comes to him. And if you want to say that it's all on him, then cool. I'm not going to argue with you on that. You know what I'm saying? Because the results don't show a difference. You know what I'm saying? So you won't get no argument with me about that. But I just feel like because of how things have been around here for quite some time, I don't think anybody could have came in and made that big of a difference. I think that if we look at, because I made a point on another show about Stroud, and I think that point might have been taken out of context, so I'll give context to it right now. Yes, C.J. Stroud has been to the playoffs, right? 2 years in a row. C.J. Stroud is on a team where they weren't any good either, but I do think more things came together perfectly for them, you know what I'm saying, in their first situation than maybe Bryce's situation. But also what I feel like was from a protection perspective, we saw it. We saw it today, man. When Bryce was protected today, look what happened down the stretch. When Bryce was protected last year, look what happened down that stretch.
But yeah, that's a real quick to interject. Like that's the thing, though. I mean, when things are perfect, 90% of quarterbacks can complete accurate throws.
Absolutely, and that's a fair point.
Like, what is he doing when they turn the ball?
When it's not? Yes, that's a fair point. That is a 100% fair point. And to that point that I was making about Stroud is that the last two games, and we'll see this tomorrow. We get to see it on Front Street tomorrow. Now, hopefully, it looks better for him because obviously I don't want to wish bad on nobody, or whatever. But last game, 19 of 35, they only scored like 9 points or something like that. You know what I'm saying? The last game we saw of him last year, a lot of pressure, and it was the same thing. Like most guys don't do well under pressure. That is very, very true, right? Mm-hmm. But I think for quarterbacks early in their career, that can be a confidence killer that's very difficult to bounce back from, right? We're seeing Sam today. Seattle hung 35 today, right? Sam still doing what Sam was doing, in Minnesota, so he hadn't lost too much of a step. But early on, because of the pressure, the whole see and ghost thing became such a big topic that it took him some time to work through that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that this will be the same situation for Bryce. I mean, some guys are just meant to come in. Cam Newton is just a different, and look, I think that at the root of it for most Panther fans, that's the measuring stick for us, right? But there is never going to be another him walking through that door. It's not going to happen. He is one of one, which is why he wore that jersey for a reason. There's not going to be another one of him walking through the door. Can you have Go ahead.
Let me pose this to you.
Yeah.
Do we talked earlier about Xavier Legette and his mentals being, under that pressure of having them, draft, Tedawara in the first round this year, even though they just drafted him last year in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think any of this erratic play, pressure, frustration comes from the fact that you are, 5'9", 5'10", 180, 185,
mm-hmm.
and you're coming in to an environment where people are used to the last time they were successful having a 6'5" and a half, 245 pound,
yes,
behemoth,
yes,
out there, throwing late, but still having the kind of howitzer, as Colin Cowherd put it, for an arm
mm-hmm.
to still throw players open.
Yes.
To still make players better. What
mm-hmm.
are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I do. I think that there's some pressure there for that because, I mean, there hasn't been – you are the second version of what we did back in 2010. So, of course, you're going to be held to that measuring. And I do think that pressure can make someone press, especially like, okay – it's funny you say that because I'll bring up a story that we talked about in the offseason, which I feel like could have been the worst possible thing for him, right? Cam talked about this on his podcast. One of the reasons that him and the Panthers are sour. I do not like this reason, so I'll just say it out loud. I don't mind to tell you. But Cam wanted to have like a passing of the torch, if you will, right? I think it was during the Super Bowl 2 years ago or something like that, where Cam wanted to basically pass the torch off to Bryce to say, hey, man, it's your team now. You know what I'm saying? Now, mind you, Cam hadn't been here for a while. It was under a different regime, but I get the point because we hadn't had anything since Cam Newton, so it makes perfect sense, right, that you would want to do something like that. That would have been the absolute worst thing in the world for Bryce Young because then if he has that rookie season that he had, I don't know that he bounces back like he did last year because you put the kind of target on his back, not you, Cam, but he puts, let's just say Bryce himself, puts the kind of target on his back. It was like, oh, okay. So Cam passing the torch off to you, and you like, yeah, I'm here, man. The Carolinas are mine. Blah blah blah. Wow. Okay. Well, I can't wait to see that. And then you see the 2-win season and 1 300-yard game, and you like, that's it. So like, yeah, I think that even without doing that whole, send off or hand off or whatever you want to call it, I think that pressure is still there. Because I mean, Cam's pictures and stuff may not be, which I know this is gonna sound crazy, bro. Okay. This is a conspiracy theory that just literally just popped in my mind after you just said that. I'm like,
Let me get my tinfoil hat on.
yeah, let's get the tinfoil hat. You know what I'm saying? Bro, what if they ain't really got the stuff with Cam around the stadium because they don't want to make him like him feel inferior? Like, hey man, like David Tepper, like, look, man, I ain't gonna put, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot of pressure, bro. Like, I ain't gonna, you don't really want to see that when you walking through the halls and stuff like that. Like, this is your house. You know what I'm saying? Like, feel comfortable, take your shoes off. It's on you now. You know what I'm saying? This is your business, all this kind of stuff. Man, that dude, man, he ain't here no more. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about that. Now, do I think that's true? Absolutely not. But that's just hilarious to me to just think that could be a reason.
Well, I'll play along and play devil's advocate because, I mean, let's be honest, man. When Tepper come in, that was the year they did the Amazon feature, you know what I mean, during the season. And, like, he walks up to Cam, and it really is like, when we were in school and the vice principal comes up and, like, some people can consider him a little douchey, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've said funny stuff, but you've also seen them prosecute some of your homeboys, you know what I mean? So, like, you'll say a joke or something that's funny and everyone laughs. Same thing kind of happened, and like he was just like real stunned and taken aback and struggling to wrap his mind around the idioms and the colloquialisms that Cam was using, and it was just a super awkward interaction. And then you look at how with Matt Rule they just systemically. Now don't get me wrong, Luke retired because of wanting to make sure he doesn't have those issues from mental repercussions from all the hits to his head.
Sure.
When he gets older, the mental, the physical, all those things that come about. CTE, all that kind of stuff. But they systemically moved and removed and brought guys in that were more palatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we had some outlandish characters.
Yes.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like when we went to the Super Bowl, we had a bunch of it was murderers row is not the right word, but like we had like an amalgamation of like pranksters, clowns, playful people, serious guys, comedians. But everybody had such a fire and such an intensity. You know what I'm saying? Everybody carried themselves with a presence. You look now, and other than Derek Brown and J.C. Horn, during the preseason and camp, he was real vocal.
He don't do it in the games.
He don't do it,
and I don't know why to save my life. Yeah, he does not do it in the game. And they had Marvin Harrison in jail today. Him and Mike Jackson.
It is a good thing. It's a good thing that we don't have more to say about, JC today, because that meant he was over there, handing out tickets. You know what I'm saying? It was lockdown.
Yeah.
But when you look at the fact that across the board, man, everybody is so vanilla. I thought I was pretty excited for, Rosebloom because he was a wild man in Los Angeles. He looks like he would rather be shopping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some stuff, we were just out skiing today. Like there was a play where because Marvin Harrison couldn't get open, they ran a crossing pattern with him, but just the fact that you allow your scheme to open yourself up to Christian Roseman having to guard Marvin Harrison Jr. is crazy. Like that's insane. But yeah, man, they took all the soul out of the team, and I feel like that was, again playing devil's advocate with my tinfoil hat on. I mean, this is what they're feeling like because I mean we do have that youth pastor in Dave Canales, and then we have his great guy that we all root for as his little co-host in
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young. I mean, everybody treats him a certain way. I was in a meeting, and a woman was like, I just really love Bryce Young. And then I compare that to when Cam had his moment with the women running routes.
Mm-hmm.
And girl I went to school with who was a librarian, she's like tweeting, posting, I can't stand Cam Newton. I just can't stand him.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the people that are on both ends that try to protect the kid, and it's really been a aura out there of I want us to handle him with kid gloves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and so then you go back to the point, tinfoil hat off. It's like, hey man, all of this stuff has been put in place for you to succeed. All of these things have been, you know, built up for you to have the kind of autonomy and success of this being your house, this being your team,
Mm-hmm.
this being your organization. And it's kind of seemed to crush him under his weight for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
save for 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to argue, and obviously I'm always going to have specific opinions, but the results are what they are. It don't matter. I can look at it any shape, way, or fashion, because if we bring somebody else in and you start seeing success, then clearly you know what it was. And if Dave Canales is going to have any shot after this season, that's going to have to be the conversation that's had upstairs. It's just like, you are going to have to. I used to hear people say all the time, actually, it's not people. I heard one person say this, that if anybody,
It'd be like that.
yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
like that.
If anybody was ever going to knock Drake out of his spot, you had to be able to, you got to flip the women, right? Now, I don't think that that's what Kendrick did. I think what Kendrick did was just something completely different. But, like, that's what people tried. And it didn't work really. I mean, Push got him, but it didn't really knock him off course. Kendrick got him in disarray because now every record is like a subliminal, something about what happened last year or whatever like that. It's just like, just either get at him or let it go. You know what I'm saying? Like, call him out or let it go, one or the other. And it's like, you're going to have to go into that office and convince Dave Tepper that Bryce is the problem. Because if he sees Bryce as a project that I'm not willing to give up on, then yes, we will either go into next year with the same coaching staff, hoping that, another year of development will help, or they will fire everybody and Bryce will still be here and he'll go through his third coach, which will be insane. And I do not see that happening. I really believe that they're going to convince him, or David Tepper's going to convince himself with the number one overall pick, if it comes to that I'm going to blow this thing up. Like Thanos said, I'm going to strip this thing down to the nucleus, to the atoms, and build a new society where people don't even know y'all. You know what I'm saying? And
kudos on the Marvel reference.
you know what I'm saying? So that might be where we're headed, man. But look, I'm hoping, and I'm going to close out with this. I'm hoping that what we just saw from the Panthers today is, down the stretch, is a moment of clarity and realization. One of those realization moments that I'll share with you, that I shared earlier, is who we are as a team. We are not a running team. You're not a running team when you have a running back with 10 attempts and 38 yards. You are a passing team when you have a guy that throws 55 times and throws for 300 yards and you almost win a game. You're a pass-first team. So maybe it's time to start acting like it. Any last words?
I'll say this. You know, the rapper Jay-Z once said, you know, thank God for granting me this moment of clarity, this moment of honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel being honest with ourselves, the kid lacks in certain areas, the kid hasn't performed in certain areas. It's not against David Tepper's nature to blow things up and to start over. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the guy made his money on aggressive trading. And that's some of the most aggressive people in the world, you know, Wall Street bankers.
Yeah.
And stock traders. But I mean, he could possibly make that decision. I don't see anything to go either way just yet. But if we go back on how Tepper's operated, like I said, I mean, wasn't working out with Matt Rule, boom, blew it up.
Mm-hmm.
Not working out with Frank Wright, boom, blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you've espoused and told everyone you're letting these guys do their jobs. And that's one thing, you know, I think we can talk about, you know, later on in the season, just how we see things go. We continue to see these weird, odd press conferences where it kind of seems like Dave Canales is putting it out in the ether that, like, him as the head coach is clamoring for all this change, and, like, people just aren't listening to him. You know what I mean? It's like you in charge, man.
Right.
What do you mean you're, you know, lobbying your defensive coordinator to put the players in that you want to play?
Yeah, that was nuts,
Tell
bro.
him what time it is.
Yeah.
Or tell him to kick rocks. You know what I'm saying?
Straight up.
We're going with the youth movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight up. But I mean, dude, for the sake of consistency, we've got to keep a coach a few years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you on that. My hope is this can be, and this is, you know, copium. I do hope that today and seeing consistency on defense and offense, however short or long of a period it was,
Mm-hmm.
can galvanize these guys to give 110% and to come out of the gate with a little more polish, a little more urgency, and a little more better execution.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you, man. So this has been another episode, another loss, but hey, man, we're going to keep the faith, y'all, of Mint Street Mondays. My name is John with my man, Invisible Brad. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you never miss another video. Until we see y'all next time, later on in the week with more content, keep pounding.
Keep pounding.